My name is Steve Aldrich. I was diagnosed in late March of 2017 with stage 4 metastasized adenocarcinoma of the esophagus. It's a very bad cancer. Virtually everyone dies from it. And fortunately for me, I knew enough about biology to, having had a career in the biotech business, so that I was able to get my whole genome, healthy genome, and my whole cancer genome sequenced, and then leverage that to identify very promising new treatment options for me. And in the process of doing that, I discovered that there were no facilities to help cancer patients who had this kind of data, to help them directly. And that's really the impetus and the spirit behind MyCancerDB.com. The mission of MyCancerDB really is to create the infrastructure that will enable patients themselves with their care providers to control their data, their fundamental health data, and to leverage that data on their own or with whomever they choose to identify the best available treatment options to treat their cancer. And in some cases, to use that data to literally create, as I did, a personalized precision therapy to treat their cancer. So that's what we're trying to do. Yeah, there are a couple things about MyCancerDB that are really distinct. I would say the first is this concept of patient sovereignty over the data. So our idea is that the patient should control their genomic data and own it. And that's not the case in most places today. Patients don't own or control the data. At MyCancerDB, they do. And we think that's distinctive. The other thing that's related to that that's very distinctive is that MyCancerDB turns the traditional relationship between the patient and the providers on its head. And the providers now come to the patient, or they come to the patient's data. The patient's data never moves. It stays inside that data vault. And because it never moves, it doesn't trigger the liabilities that normally are triggered when patients share their health information between providers. And that the rules that govern that, HIPAA and GINA, for example, that are there to supposedly protect patients, have the unfortunate consequence of really putting a damper on collaboration. But if the data never moves, the liabilities associated with HIPAA and GINA don't come into play, and the providers can collaborate freely around the data. So we think it's a very important foundational change in the way the healthcare system works. When we talk about personalized medicine, what we're talking about for the most part is using data from the patient to personalize their therapy so that it's matched to their unique genetic identity and the unique genetic identity of their cancer. So in my case, the neoantigen peptide cancer vaccine that I commissioned to be designed first in the Center for Genomics and Transcriptomics in Germany, and then at the La Jolla Institute of Immunology here in San Diego. That vaccine is based on the unique genetics of my cancer, and it only applies to me. So it's no good to anybody else or any other person who has cancer, but just me. And that kind of therapy that is targeted to just your cancer cells. It doesn't affect my healthy cells. It just affects my cancer cells, and it's only good for me and not for someone else. That kind of therapy is called a personalized precision, or N of 1 therapy. That's what we mean by personalized, truly personalized medicine. One of the challenges that we face is that the healthcare system that we have inherited was designed for a different era, when there wasn't the possibility of personalized precision N of 1 therapies. So the healthcare system really isn't set up to deal with that. It's not set up to deal with it from the point of view of infrastructure. So we're part of the movement of creating that infrastructure that will enable that to happen. But it's more than just the infrastructure, it's the economics. Currently, it's very expensive and takes a long time for someone to create a personalized precision therapy just for them. But the good news is that the technology is getting better, faster, cheaper all the time. And we see that, we've studied it, and we understand it. And our goal is that although as we start, we're still going to be pretty expensive, as we grow and as time moves on, it should become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, so more and more people can take advantage of this. But it's not just economics, it's also the institutional and regulatory barriers. Currently, our system for approving access to these kinds of therapies, it really is broken. It's inappropriate to require these N of 1 therapies to go through the 3-phase clinical trial system. The 3-phase clinical trial system is a stochastic system. It's designed and serves well to test a standard product across a big population of people. But it's completely unworkable as a system for testing a treatment that's been designed and manufactured for only one unique individual. So we're working with the FDA to encourage them to try to reform that system quickly in order to make these therapies accessible to many more people. When people are diagnosed with cancer, they should be aware that control over their genomic sequence data might be the solution to their problem. And so they should be asking their doctors and their oncologists and their caregivers for full genomic sequencing, both of their cancer and their healthy genome. That's number one. Number two, there's a broader movement out there. We have an advisory board member, Bryce Olson, former global health strategist with Intel, who has started a movement called Sequence Me. Bryce has a very threatening prostate cancer, and he has been kept alive because he was sequenced as I was. And then the third thing everyone can do is lobby their legislators and their regulators to make access to N of 1 therapies available to more people. Everyone should be aware that each year, last year, 2018, there were about 1,700,000 new cases of cancer diagnosed in the US, and there were about 610,000 people who died of cancer. So this isn't a small problem. It's a big, big public health issue, and it's growing. We have the opportunity today, we live in a very hopeful time, where we can cure many, many more people of their cancers if we can get them the right treatment based on an in-depth understanding of their unique genetics and the unique genetics of their cancer. So people should just be aware of that. And wherever they are in their cancer journey, they shouldn't lose hope. They should keep the faith and demand to be sequenced, and then seek out opportunities for leveraging the data that they collect or that's been collected on them to identify the treatment options that are best for them.